Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, free and sovereign peoples of this world, welcome to Westminster Central Hall, where we are today, the 15th of the great anniversary of the 800th anniversary, in point of fact, of the signing of Magna Carta, June 2015. We are ceremonially inducting, bringing to bear, bringing to life that which has been lifeless for far too long. It is called natural justice. I have a preferred term for natural justice. I call it quite simply pure truth. Because quite assuredly the International Tribunal for Natural Justice has arrived in our time, in our day, and if we're to understand the spirit of Magna Carta correctly, then the ITNJ emerges with the same sense of historical timeliness, context unaltered through the corridors and the passages of time. I warmly welcome you. We are going to be somewhat informal today, despite the sober environment that we have gathered in here in London. And the reason for that is because what is required more than anything else in the world or the universe of jurisprudence is a sense of human proportion, the need for us to bring law back down to earth, to fix it firmly to the soil with our feet, our hearts and our minds. We must, at this time, bring law back to where it has always belonged, standing directly beneath the central sun of pure truth, that place wherein and whereupon we cast no shadow. Sir John Walsh of Brannagh has practiced as an international and constitutional lawyer for the last 3 decades. He has been admitted to the Honourable Society of the Inner Temple and the Honourable Society of King's Inns. In addition to his work as a barrister, Sir John served as a magistrate and senior member of an administrative review tribunal for 8 years and has been an accredited mediator for the last 17. He has worked in and advised governments in numerous countries across the globe. He is Chancellor Emeritus of Greenwich University, holds graduate degrees in law, education, jurisprudence, and criminology. He is widely published on a number of historical and legal topics, and is founding member of the Human Rights Institute in London and president of the Norfolk Island Bar Association. He is also an international notary public. I couldn't be more delighted, knowing as I do the man, having stood beside him over a number of years on a number of seminal geopolitical issues and seen the measure of the man. I couldn't be more delighted to introduce to you the founding Chief Justice of the International Tribunal for Natural Justice, Sir John Walsh of Brannagh.
Thank you for the warm introduction. I've known Sacha for a few years. He's always been friendly towards me, like when he said to me, "How would you like to travel a bit overseas?" So we trotted down to Heathrow Airport, and I went to the BA counter, and they said, "Yes, we know who you are and we know what you're about. You're on your way to Ukraine." And Montague and I went to Ukraine, It was a friendly place, full of troops with submachine guns, people rioting in the streets, and a judicial system that was out of key. And I said to Sacha, why are we going over there? He said, to straighten them out. Now, on this day, 800 years ago, in fact, earlier this morning, King John went back to he was at Runnymede. He went back to central London, saying to himself, how in the hell did I get into this mess? And it was because a group of barons produced a document written by a good churchman that set out not the new law, but what the law was that the king had been ignoring for a number of years. It restated the common law. It didn't create the common law. The common law was already there. It didn't introduce trial by jury. It was already there because King John had strayed. And unfortunately, governments on this side of the world and other parts of the world have strayed. And the courts in various countries, including some of the international tribunals and courts, have not been able to remedy the damage. And Sacha's vision is that the ITNJ is going to do that. I suppose you could say we're the start of a quiet revolution. My role will be to assist in having other judges appointed to the tribunal and overseeing what you might see as the judicial arm. And I'm be assisted in that by my three associates, Pauline Butler, who's in this room, Jodie Anderson and Shay Woodward, who've been working on the ITNJ for over the last 12 months. As Sacha said, natural justice is looking for the truth. In some parts of the world, they'd call it giving people a fair go, allowing people to come to court. Henry IV had the same idea, and I think you'll see that in your program. In the year 1400, there was some concern there that government officials, or what you might call royal officials at the time, were hindering people going to court and putting their grievances. And he introduced an Act of Parliament called Access to the Courts Act 1400, which is not always being followed today. The ITNJ is going to be a little different from other courts in that we don't have any restrictions. For example, any person who has been aggrieved or wronged by anybody, whether it's a government official, private person, or by the law itself, can come to the tribunal and present a case. Many countries you need permission to go to court, and in far too many countries, if you go to the first court, the lower court, and you lose, and you want to appeal to a higher court, you need to have permission. Now, I'm not familiar with the statistics of all countries, but I can tell you that we flew from Australia a few days ago. In Australia now, although the Constitution provides that one can go to the highest court in the land, which is called the High Court of Australia, that's what the Constitution says, the Constitution that was written in the year 1900, but you can't, because 95% of the applications are thrown in the bin and rejected before they're even heard. And I remember asking a High Court judge at a legal forum that he was at, what would he say to the people of the colonies that voted to form a federation called the Commonwealth of Australia, who thought that they had written into the Constitution the availability and permanency of being able to go to the highest court in the land to remedy their wrongs and to seek justice. I said, it's in the Constitution, but you don't allow it. How would you explain it to them if they were present in this room? He said, I would just tell them times have changed, we've made new rules. Haven't changed the Constitution, we're just interpreting it in a different way. And that's one of the ills that the ITNJ hopefully will address and give everybody an opportunity to come to court and present their case and have it heard fairly, independently and impartially.
Thank you. Thank you. Now, one of the biggest, most robust pillars of this court is going to be something called truth and reconciliation. I've been an activist for nearly 20 years. I'm not going to give away my age here, but I am going to say this much, that I know about the factionalism that exists even amongst activists, those who are at the front of change. We have been to hell and back in the last year in putting this court together to establish a fully integrated metric for engaging process. In the first instance, we commend our friends across the Atlantic because you have picked up the slack on this. You are absolutely leading the change, and there are thousands of you that we count as our friends. So I suggest that we seriously look at the matter of truth and reconciliation, of absolution as we move forward. We need to apprehend ourselves here and understand what forgiveness truly means. I am not a religious man and I cannot speak to it from a religious perspective. But I do believe in kindness. And I also understand one thing in this world that makes us truly, truly great. And that is quite simply our capacity to love and to be loved. All else is immaterial. I am delighted to introduce to you today our founding commissioner of the ITNJ Truth and Reconciliation Council, a dear friend, a fine human being, His Grace Bishop Riah Abu El-Assal, who has joined us from Jerusalem in London today.
Sisters and brothers, members of the one and only one human family created by the one and only Creator of all of us. Thank you for giving me this opportunity to share with you. Allow me first to thank Sacha for inviting me, for including me in this endeavor, the foundation of which, the goal of which is claiming back what we must all work towards it, human life with real dignity for all. The task that we have been entrusted with is no easy task, as far as I could tell, especially working against what has been established for hundreds of years, if not more. And yet, we are not encountering what might be described as a mission impossible. There is nothing that we may call impossible as long as we have the will. Not only the will, but also the courage to go ahead with our task, not looking so much backward, but looking forward, always forward, having the grace, and I say the grace, not the law, having the grace to admit that in spite of whatever wisdom some of us have, we cannot claim we have all the answers to all the questions that continue to address themselves to us as human beings. We will do our best. The search for truth will continue. I think it was the great Mahatma of India who said once you see the truth, people continue to look to the truth as if it is a matter of facts, historical or otherwise. We're talking about seeing the truth. Once you see the truth, walk even if you have to walk alone. Now with all of you listening, and with all the people present here, and people, members of the panel, we're not alone. And I believe in the Almighty God who entrusted to people over the ages different missions, and this is but one mission that has been entrusted to us today, entrusted to me, namely truth and reconciliation. And reconciliation should be on top of our agenda. The task of reconciliation, as far as I could tell from my Christian background, from my ministry, from my training, has been entrusted to us. St. Paul, in his letter to the Corinthians, says God was in Christ reconciling the world to himself, and he entrusted us. He did not say entrusted only the few Christians of those days, entrusted us all with the mission, the ministry, and the task of reconciliation. Reconciliation does require also the courage to say first that I'm sorry, I have done wrong. The first step is to admit that none of us could claim to be perfect. When we do wrong, when others do wrong, they need to say, we've done it, and being what we are, not one of us is perfect, we are under obligation to say, we pardon you. Reconciliation begins by being able to forgive one another. This is the first step on the road to reconciling with the so-called enemies. Sometimes we think they are the enemy number one, and then we find out in the manner that we behave towards them that they are not only the enemies, but they are the brothers. In our task, in our search for ways to reconcile those in conflict, we certainly need to be not partially committed, but totally committed to this task, let what may come, so that we may be given grace by Almighty God to accomplish a mission which, as I said, is not impossible, a mission possible if all of us join hands together and see to it that we can claim back what has been given as a wonderful gift from the one who created you and who created me. Thank you.
Dounne Alexander, a beloved friend, is coming forth as a founding commissioner of the ITNJ Law Commission. Personally, I couldn't be more thrilled than having you as our founding law commissioner. Ladies and gentlemen, friends, I give you Dounne Alexander.
First of all, I have to say, Louis Montague have a lot to answer for. Because that gentleman at the end there, a few years ago, whilst we were working together on health, have you ever heard of Sacha Stone? No. Oh my God, John, you've got to meet him. Okay, Louis. Next thing, a couple of weeks later, he invites me over to meet Sacha. I was so inspired by this man that is so full of compassion, of love. I'm thinking, are you for real? And since then, I mean, we've been in communication for some time. But when he called me a few weeks ago and said, Dounne, I would love you to be on the ITNJ, I thought, well, there's only one good thing I could say. It takes a genius or a crazy man to put his head on the block for the sake of humanity. And I think it will take equally crazy people to equally agree and put our heads on the block for the sake of love. Now, you mentioned last night the Corinthians. You might be pleased to know that my middle name is Corinthia, because because of the Corinthians. I became, well, number one, I come from a background of naturopaths, which in the old days they weren't called naturopaths, they were just human beings with incredible wisdom. And my great-grandmother, bless her, who is still my spiritual guide, who lived to the age of 13 and taught me all I know now about the universe, about universal love, about kindness, about the beauty of humankind, as the most of all, this all-encompassing being that we call God. And our purpose in this life is simply to try to learn to love and unite and to treat each person as you hope that you will be treated yourself. Because I was actually born to only live for 28 days, and they were so convinced that I was not going to survive that, thank God, my parents forgot to put a name to my birth certificate. I only learned not too long ago the meaning of that. At least it didn't sell me to the state. Anyway, through my own work in natural health care, through my own experience with the medical establishment, including governments, etc., where I really believe that the health establishment was there to heal and to ensure that people received the kindness of the advocates of the old times who only came into this particular vocation to heal people, not to hurt or harm them in any way. And from my own experience, doctors or scientists or the medical establishment was not interested in God or in spiritual healing or in, as long as it's scientific proven, that's all that matters. Anyway, it took me on a 20-year-long wild goose chase, which took me on a fantastic journey of understanding where the medical establishment came from, all about the pharmaceutical industries, but most importantly, where people are being left to die prematurely or to suffer unnecessarily simply because we're in a medical establishment which is based on business, simply making money and who is making the money, etc. So with Sacha coming in and saying to become involved in this, since my main pathway is involved with children, with human beings as a whole, but understanding the agenda of the controllers of the earth, my dream is to see that children survive and become healthy, vibrant, wholesome citizens again. So in my part as a commission, I just hope that whatever input I could put in trying to restore that dictate that's been going on for far too long and get people back into a natural balance of life. And that natural balance means the only way you can stop violence, ignorance, hatred, is simply bringing back love and learning to look after number one, first and foremost, and teaching parents again. The little word known as respect, we start at that point. So.
Thank you. Well, you folks looking in weren't in the theatre last night, but it was a tremendous night. What you didn't see, even if you were in the audience last night, was that Dounne Alexander kicked me under the table. And she kicked me under the table because I ended her piece by reminding the audience that she was voted one of the 100 most influential black people in Britain's history. Well, that was for the 2000 Millennium Archives as recorded in the British National Library for posterity. And for those of you who are monarchists, she was also honoured by Queen Elizabeth II with the MBE Medal for Services to the Nation. There you have it. Dounne Alexander, thank you. Finally, representing the ITNJ Board of Trustees, a very dear friend, may I present founding trustee of the International Tribunal for Natural Justice, Louis Montague.
Thanks, Sacha. Our existing court system, the judiciary, is failing the people. It seems to be there to look after one portion of our lovely society, the people that seem to do all the bad things, the people that inflict pain and suffering on most of us. So it's important that we now have a choice. The people have a choice. We talk about giving people a choice in health. Well, now we want to give them a choice in law, in recourse to law, to look after whatever problems they are having. Now, the great thing about this tribunal is that anybody, as Sir John has said, can make an application. It will be heard. It will be transmitted. People will see it. Transparency is paramount here for everybody to be a part of it. So my interest, really, same as Dawn, is in health. And the natural health industry is suppressed. It's getting worse every year. More protocols are being attacked and pushed down into the soil. And we need to stop this. But how do we stop it? We don't have the recourse to law because there's no point in going into a judiciary system that protects those people that are inflicting the pain. So this is an alternative, but this is just the beginning, of course. This is all tremendous, but this is the beginning. A lot has to happen from this point onwards. For example, because of the suppression of the natural health industry, one thing we're now going to try and do is get involved in scientific research based on what they want, because their excuse always is, where is your scientific research to talk about natural treatments? And we don't have any. And so we want to pick up the gauntlet on that as well and say, okay, let's bite the bullet here and let's have a go. What do we need to do to make the medical industry, the pharmaceuticals, stand back and say, what do you need us to do to prove to you these protocols, especially for cancer, work? The efficacious is 100%. So what do we need to do? So this is going to be something the New Earth Institute is involved with, and we intend to pursue this until we get all sides together to go down this route of scientific research so they have no more excuses. They can't say, we don't want to start diagnosing and then saying you have a choice of a natural treatment because there's no scientific evidence. We don't want to do it. Of course we don't want to do it. It's expensive, and there's no need to actually investigate treatments that have been around for decades. We know they work. We know the side effects. There aren't any. So we don't need to do proper scientific research based on the gold standard. But if we don't do this, we won't get the natural treatment world into the public domain and into doctors, because that is their excuse. They're afraid. Doctors are controlled by their medical associations. I know, I talk to them all the time. And who are they controlled by? Governments who are controlled by the pharmaceuticals. It's just a ridiculous mess. And they get away with it time and time again. So we need to actually find an alternative way to go about it. And the ITNJ is just that. And I wish it all the best in the world, and we have a lot of work to do from now on. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. The Constitution. Let's discuss that momentarily. We have had a delightful couple of weeks. This Constitution is a work in progress. I hope, with the grace of God, it will forever be a work in progress, until such time as human beings don't require constitutions, till human beings don't require words on paper to define pure truth. But so long as we are all plagued with something of a shadow, and we are using words on paper to define our intentions and our meanings, and we're doing them with the best of the intentions, with this noble document, the Constitution, we were battling even up till yesterday on words and vernacular and meanings, and I love it. I love it, and I want that to continue. Today's Constitution I'm holding in my hand. And this is ceremonial. please be clear. What it does say in our Constitution is that it is constantly open to amendment. We will establish seasonal powwows or meetings. At this stage, we've established that every 24 weeks we will sit down with our international chapters, many of whom are looking in today from around the world. And each of you will be speaking to your committee members. And you will be speaking to the people in the streets. And you'll be getting that feedback that is the nectar, the elixir that we require to become the greatest constitutional document enshrining jurisprudence in the world in our lifetimes. There is not time today, nor would I put you through it, to read the Constitution from start to finish. You will have to take one man's word for the fact that we have 5 top copies here of the Constitution with some notes affixed and also a treaty document. We won't get too caught up in ceremony beyond today's proceedings because ceremony and fancy words have a tendency to run away with us and cause us to forget our humanity. But we're going to seal these, and we're going to have the people assembled here today in Westminster Central Hall in the President's Chamber. We're going to have everyone present is invited to sign each copy of these 5 constitutions as witnesses. Is everyone in this room happy about reading the treaty with me aloud? If you feel it, please do so. The treaty, for those of you who don't know, is a very simple document. One side, second side. Last night at the ceremonial seating at the tabernacle, we had hundreds of people in there signing the treaty, and I have them in this box here. Thus, this box becomes the mandate. This becomes the voice of the people. Thumbprints, signatures, a great many of them. Every single one of these treaties will be archived, and for those who are happy to be so, will be enshrined online as a record. But the point being this, that without this treaty event, this treaty document, without the voice of the people, there would not be an international tribunal for natural justice. Well, there would be if 3 or more of us have signed it, and 3 or more of us have signed it. So in point of fact, the court is actually in law, but you understand the thrust of this. We really do need people of the world to spread this good word, because if you don't do it, if we don't do it, no one will. And trust me on this, that your friendly government is not about to teach you about treaties. Your friendly law society or school or university complex is not likely to be engaging young, inquisitive minds into the exquisite sophistry of treaties and constitutions. You see, they have been designed for millennia to confuse the hell out of us. What we're wanting to do here is to, again, humanize the processes. We're trying to keep them as simple as possible. The Constitution to the International Tribunal for Natural Justice can be read in 3 or 4 minutes. The treaty can be read in less. Friends, brothers and sisters, please join me and just read through the treaty document. The ITNJ Treaty mandating the formation of the International Tribunal for Natural Justice. I, a man or woman, hereby mandate the International Tribunal for Natural Justice by my ratification of this, the Treaty of the International Tribunal for Natural Justice, voluntarily, freely, and absent any outside influence, coercion, or duress, having attained the age of majority and being in full control of my mental and physical faculties. You will sign your name there You will put the land as it is understood. You will put the date there. And it goes on to say, having awakened to the truth that since the moment of our birth, we have been contracted to corporate institutions which by their very nature serve neither people nor planet, and in hereby revoking in earnest all such contracts which have blinded, encumbered, and sought to separate us from our most noble expression. We now claim a rightful place in this world which the Supreme Creator within has provided for us all, as equals amongst all, and will take such action as to ensure the restoration of truth and justice for all people of the world. We have met with such a truth as we have come to know it, understand it, and embrace it, and now choose to be ruled by it for the rest of our days. We, according to the solemn duty as aforesaid, and per the dictate of conscience, ratify the present treaty with the earnest intention that truth and reason be restored to the delivery of justice in the world. And so, recognizing that in truth, 1. Law in its purest form requires nothing more or less than we each do no harm. 2. Harm in any form is only ever caused by natural persons, regardless of whether or not the natural person may claim to be operating under the corporate dictate, colour of law, or otherwise. 3. Harm in any form is only ever capable of being suffered by natural persons, regardless of whether or not the harm suffered may have been so suffered through a natural person's artificial externalities. 4. Neither corporate community nor colour of right can indemnify a natural person for harm caused to another. 5. No natural person is bound by the unlawful ruling of a de facto court where they are not a consenting party with full knowledge of the manner in which their consent is given. We, the natural men and women of the world, pursuant to the ultimate goal of realizing equal rights and dignity for each member of the human family, hereby mandate the International Tribunal for Natural Justice. The tribunal shall exist and function according to the Constitution of the International Tribunal for Natural Justice, as indicated on the website. Let this message go forth from this time and place to all the peoples of the world, that to right the wrongs done to them, and in vindication of their rights, and the enforcement of just causes, and to hold accountable those responsible for breaches of human rights, it is proclaimed that the International Tribunal for Natural Justice is hereby established pursuant to this treaty and Constitution. Thank you. I would like my esteemed colleagues' final comments, if any. Dounne Alexander.
I was still dumbfounded, difficult to even comment. I am so overwhelmed, so inspired, and my all belief is that everyone gets involved and participate and do everything they can to ensure this tribunal go forward. It will take a long time, it will take hard work, but it does take total commitment and faith in keeping it alive and keeping it going.
Your Grace.
Allow me to quote the psalmist as we inaugurate this treaty and this International Tribunal for Natural Justice, to say, "This is the day which the Lord hath made. Let us rejoice and be glad in it, and let us go forward." Thank you all.
Lewis Montague, sir.
Well, as I said before, this is the first day of something very exciting. It's about time the people out there that are doing all this harm around the world know there is now an alternative for people to pursue, to make an approach to the ITNJ and put their case forward against any person And notice I say person all the time as against organisation, because we are against trying to go after organisations because they don't make decisions. People make decisions. And they're the people we should be actually trying to indict on all these charges that are clearly building up over the years and years that have gone past, where they have been creating all this damage for their own greed and interest. We so need this alternative form of justice to be available to the people around the world. And I hope we'll all get behind it. As I said, this is the beginning, but we need to push now really hard and get it working together. Thank you.
Your Worship.
Someone asked me once, what do we need to fix up the problems in the court system? My answer was very simple. We need intelligent, honest judges, and we need competent counsel. Now, one of the things that we've had a look at, and Sacha and I have spoken about, there's also a rumour going around in one particular country. There's an organisation called BAR, B-A-R, in uppercase letters, and I see Dr. Cleverly smiling over there, that is supposedly a secret organisation that all the lawyers in the world belong to. The reality is they don't. I'm a member of 2 bar associations, and I don't have any problem with that. There's a book here on Magna Carta, of which I was a minor contributor, published by the International Bar Association, which is here for anyone to look at. And the International Bar Association was the instigator of the Human Rights Institute some years ago. And so Sacha and I spoke about this, and we came up with a solution. The International Tribunal for Natural Justice is setting up its own bar association, and the members of it will agree to an oath, similar to a judicial oath, to do right by all manner of persons, to act competently before the tribunal, and to fight for their clients and for justice. It's written in such a way it does not conflict with any other bar association or oath. In some countries you take an oath to the sovereign, such as the Queen. In other countries you take an oath to the government, or you take an oath to the Attorney General or the Bishop, or whatever you do. This doesn't conflict. And what Sacha and I saw as a way of evening the field, as it were. So the people the counsel, whether they're solicitors, barristers, attorneys, proctors, whatever they're called, who appear before the tribunal, have agreed to a similar type of oath that the judges will take. And we are opening that to everybody. It doesn't conflict with any national or international or parochial bar association, and we think this will help answer a number of questions. The only disadvantage for me is that I pay bar fees to 2 bar associations at the moment. Means I'll be paying some small modest fees to a 3rd one. So I was prompted to raise that because I saw Dr. Cleverly come into the room, and welcome.
Indeed.
So,
thank you very much. We're going to have a rather busy few minutes with members in this room filing past and variously witnessing the 5 constitutions. Thank you so much for looking in and witnessing this event, for all of the many hundreds, if not thousands, of people looking in online to the streaming. Thank you for participating in this ceremonial event. It is now precisely 5:29 p.m. in the afternoon, June the 15th, 2015, and I do declare the International Tribunal for Natural Justice into law. Thank you. So, let's begin to witness the Constitution.
Just imagine how much time it took to sign the Declaration of Independence. 76 signatures.
76 signatures. Okay, well, we're doing well. How many of us are in the room? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29. A wonderful trinity. 30. 30 of us in the room. Great. J for Justice, okay. Well, there's the first signed and sealed treaty. Anyone in the room feel free to also sign that historical document, but we really wanted that witness page. We have those witness pages here, almost done, okay. So we'll just seal the next one, try not to set fire to the Chief Justice. We'll say goodbye to all of you around the world looking in and look forward to seeing you variously on commission meetings, chapter meetings, and what have you. Thank you and Godspeed.